In California, a law that mainstream mental health groups and equal rights advocates have hailed as a milestone is under attack tonight. Both lawsuits claim that banning the so-called therapy violates therapists' First Amendment rights.
And here in Albany, one councilman is pushing a law against a controversial therapy that promises to turn gay people straight.
Supporters of the therapy say it's helped people with same-sex attractions become heterosexual, but opponents say it leads to depressive thoughts and makes the struggle to come out even more difficult. Tonight, one councilman.
When I took office back in January of this year, conversion therapy wasn't remotely on my radar. I wouldn't think in a million years that would happen in the city of Albany. And then I had several friends and friends of friends approach me, and they told me that conversion therapy was happening in the area. So I said, all right, let me do some research. And in doing research, what I learned, one of the most nefarious aspects of conversion therapy is that it is very much under the radar. And then you have a side that I'm somewhat sympathetic to. It tends to be the more religious elements of the pro-conversion therapy folks, and they truly believe that a harm has been inflicted on someone, for example, myself, and that harm is I've become gay because of societal circumstances, and they feel like it is their mission to help me rid myself of this condition.
There's no conclusive evidence that it's biologically or genetically predetermined.
The research shows that the risk for harm is not any different from any other intervention.
We saw not one, not two, not three, but hundreds who changed.
There were some members of my family who were struggling with this issue, and I decided to look into it and see what we could do to be of assistance. We really view our mission as trying to basically educate the world about the fact that change is possible and that no one is born gay.
I remember being at the only gas station in town, which also doubled as a deli, and I was there getting a slice of pizza, if I remember correctly, and I had a very nice gentleman approach me, a very sincere gentleman. He said, I'm hearing from folks in the community that you have a challenge that you're facing, is how he phrased it. He would say to me, clearly you have a problem that stemmed from your childhood. It started off with him trying to solidify the idea in my mind that there was actually something wrong with me.
There is no scientific evidence whatsoever that people are born gay. Homosexuality is an emotional adaptation, typically to childhood trauma or childhood wounds, and it's really from a complex mix of both nurture and nature.
If you look back at all of recorded history, there have been evidence of differences in sexual orientation, and also even in cave drawings, the existence of transgender folks. So it is, to me, a normal part of human sexual expression.
Conversion reparative therapy comes from a pathological standpoint, so it comes from this place of, there's something wrong with an individual, something must have happened, something negative that is influencing or causing them to be gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender.
The individual who is involved in dealing with the issue often has a lack of self-esteem or a lack of self-confidence or a lack of self-worth. How can conventional therapy helping someone with self-esteem and self-worth be harmful? Makes no sense.
Some of the stories that we've heard from individuals, several have been individuals that as teenagers, who now are in their 40s or 50s, as teenagers were sort of forced or mandated to go to see a conversion therapist.
My aunt went through it back in the 60s. And she ended up committing suicide because she could never come to terms with the fact that she was gay. She committed suicide when she was 33. I'm 33. If my mother did that to me, does that mean I would be there?
It's getting someone to decide that their sexual orientation is a problem, and it's a part of them that has to be, it's so disgusting that it has to be changed in order to fit into society. You can't call it therapy, you can't call it help. And the person that feels that way and wants to change to fit in is basically rejecting themselves based on what they've internalized, that internalized homophobia and heterosexism that they've engaged in.
Ultimately, conversion therapy really sort of pushes the idea that to be gay, lesbian, bisexual, to be part of the LGBTQ community, to lead a happy life isn't possible, ultimately, is kind of the message that's given. And, you know, here at Choice of Counseling Consulting, you know, we're making sure that people know that that's not the case. People can lead absolutely functional, happy, purposeful lives. It is possible to be gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, you know, and find love, and find safety, and find a good job, and, you know, have a house and a white picket fence and 2.5 kids.
What is really important to understand is that nobody is forced to do this. If someone is happy being gay, we say, be happy, go do your thing. But if someone is unhappy, has unwanted attractions, that this is not consistent with their religious or personal value structure, they should have the right to work to make the changes that they want to make. We're dealing in America with freedom of choice. We're dealing in America with the question of the ability of people to have free will and to be able to make freely make decisions. So to have any kind of government interference in that, as for example, the bill that is in the New York legislature now, basically deprives someone of the very freedom to make an authentic choice of their own.
Does a religious entity have a right to practice conversion therapy?
To say that it's helpful and within someone's rights, first you have to beat the person down to get them to hate themselves enough that they say, okay, help me. And that's not First Amendment. You know, someone could come in and say, I don't want to leave this man who beats me every night, or I don't want to leave this woman who beats me every night. Do they have a right to do that? Yeah. Am I concerned about that right?
Unfortunately, as long as a church is not physically hurting a person, they can engage in conversion therapy.
As a therapist, you know, by nature, my hope is that other therapists, even if they're doing or have done conversion therapy, that it's to help and support people. My professional opinion, though, is that it's just not effective.
The people who oppose the counseling for minors, in my judgment, have an agenda and do not understand the fact that people, many people, are really struggling mightily to overcome and want to be able to overcome.
There were a lot of very strange interventions that were purported to help change your orientation from homosexuality to heterosexuality.
What I can say about the litigation is that I believe this is a political witch hunt. The basic contention in the lawsuit is that people cannot change, and therefore, because we provide resources to people who want to change, that we have allegedly violated a consumer fraud law of the state of New Jersey. Nothing's more ludicrous in my mind. It's ridiculous. There are thousands of people who have successfully overcome homosexuality. The oldest person that's ever come to me is a guy who was in his 70s. And he had lived the gay lifestyle for 50 years. And I kind of looked at him kind of quizzically and said, why do you care? You know, this is the way you've lived your life. What's the big deal? Why do you want to change now? And he said, well, he said, I guess I'm going to meet my maker sometime in the not too distant future, and I'd like to go to him cleansed. The last I heard from him was when he was when he finished his counseling. He was about 75, so I guess he had done about 3 years worth of counseling. And he called to say that he had moved down to Florida, retired down there, and he met a widow, and he just wanted me to know that he was going to get married.
Sexual orientation cannot be changed. People can change behavior, but in order to, to be able to measure someone's sexual orientation changing, or feelings or attraction to another person or persons, how does one measure that?
I am a gay male that is on disability for post-traumatic stress disorder, and I make a living dressing as a woman. I came out when I was just before I turned 21. I burned down the closet door. There was no going back. My father was a Marine. I can change a pipe, I can fix a car. He wanted me to be a man's man. That was his conversion therapy. We all have them.
I hope we get to a point where the courts recognize that psychological abuse is just as serious, if not more serious, than physical abuse. The community at large in Albany has been very supportive of this. The rankings year after year after year for how friendly Albany is towards the LGBT community is just through the roof. I was talking to a friend of mine and we were having this conversation, and I was having some frustration, and his name is Jim. I said, Jim, these people who are saying that it's not happening in Albany, so therefore I shouldn't do anything about it, it's driving me nuts. What do you think about it? He goes, well, wait a second. Let's use an extreme example. If let's say if murder was still something that was in the gray area and still was something sort of allowed, but we knew it didn't happen in Albany, wouldn't we still want to put legislation on the books to stop it before it got here?
Governor Cuomo doesn't know a lot of people that run the awards in Albany. I know Judd Krasher. I did his first campaign, I'll do his next campaign, and I'll put on a wig, I'll put on a dress, and I'll march for Judd.